$200. The Apple TV 4K is by far the most expensive streaming box on the market today, so surely that's justified, right? Sort of, kind of. It really depends what you're looking for in a streaming box. This video is going to be my review of the Apple TV 4K and everything you need to know so you can make a decision on whether or not it's worth it for you. So let's talk design. I'm a huge fan of it. It's sleek and it's not overly intrusive like other products out there in the market today, so it makes it more compatible with pretty much anyone's living room setup, no matter the color scheme, size that they have available to them. It can pretty much fit and blend into any living room imaginable. Behind the box is a dedicated power adapter port, an HDMI port, and thankfully an Ethernet port. I love myself some wired in connections. It's just night and day the kind of speeds you can get being able to plug right into your modem versus having to use Wi-Fi. As for the remote, the build and finish of it is fantastic. I love its compact, minimalist design. It does have a nice brushed aluminum back, which I'm actually quite a huge fan of. It feels really nice and premium in the hand. And then the top of the remote is a two-toned glossy black and a matte finish on the top. The glossy finish is nice in just from the outsider's perspective looking at it, but once you start touching this remote, it gets fingerprints all over the gloss, so it's kind of not worth the nice little shine that it provides because you just have a fingerprint mess the second you take it out of the box. As for the buttons on the remote, there aren't that many on there, and Apple actually omitted a very important button, but let's go ahead and walk through the ones that are here. There's the menu button, the control center button, there's a Siri button, play pause, and volume controls up and down, but there's no mute button. I'm serious, on a remote in the 21st century, there's no mute button. So the only way to mute the TV is like literally holding down the volume button until it goes all the way to 0. In terms of navigation, Apple actually omitted the use of physical buttons like physical up, down, left, right buttons to navigate the TV. You actually are going to use gestures, just swiping your finger up, down, left, right on the trackpad of the remote to navigate yourself around the TV. At first, I hated navigating my TV this way. It sucked. It was too sensitive. It didn't work properly all the time, and a lot of other reviewers and reviews I've read online, people are having bad experiences with the remote. But over time, I can confidently tell you that you do get used to it, and I actually kind of prefer the swiping mechanism versus physical buttons. It oddly feels very smooth when you're navigating, so I can totally see why Apple wanted to opt for something like this versus a physical press. And there's just something about swiping on the remote that has this premium feel to it. It's like it's on a different level of premium versus physically pressing a button on the remote. I know that doesn't really make a lot of sense as I'm saying that out loud, but it's something you kind of have to try for yourself to get a better understanding of what I'm talking about. And there are actually a lot of use cases where the actual trackpad on the remote makes a lot more sense to have in terms of media consumption versus using physical buttons. So for example, when you're watching a YouTube video, if I want to rewind, I can precisely rewind with the trackpad on the remote because it's tracking with my fingers very slowly. So I can go second by second by second, versus if we're using a physical tactile button to rewind or fast forward, it's going to rewind or fast forward by a predetermined amount of seconds, like a block of 5 seconds or 10 seconds. So you can never precisely get back to the point that you want to be at. I know that's a very niche example, but you can kind of see where the application is with the trackpad. It's for precision. You can be a lot more precise with consuming media in ways like that. So enough about the remote in the box. So what happens when you turn this thing on? What you're booted up to is Apple's tvOS 14. You can think of it kind of as like a giant iPad or a giant iPhone on your screen. It feels very familiar. You have a home page with a dock at the very top of your 4 or 5 most used apps, and then below are going to be all of the rest of the downloaded apps that you have. You can rearrange the apps just like you can on your iPhone, and you can swipe through all the bubbles and open your apps accordingly just like you would on the iPhone. It feels very familiar, and people who are already in the Apple ecosystem are going to like the way that tvOS looks and feels when you use it. And tvOS itself is very diverse. The amount of things you can do on this operating system is just endless. So I thought for this review, I would focus on the things that I've tested and I've tried, and kind of the most popular use cases for why you'd want to buy an Apple TV and give you my opinion on it. So let's start with the most obvious use case out there, which is video streaming. Apple TV 4K does support Netflix, Crave, YouTube, all the major streaming services out there, at least that I am using, so I haven't really had any trouble getting access to the ones that I like. On top of all that, if you do have a compatible TV, which you should if you're gonna buy the Apple TV 4K, your 4K TV will be able to display all of that content at a high 4K HDR resolution with Dolby Atmos sound and potentially Dolby Vision. But we're gonna just back up a second. What does all of that mean if you're not familiar? For starters, 4K just means 4 times the resolution of a typical high definition image, or in more layman terms, the image you're looking at just looks a lot more crispier, more detailed, and it just looks great to the eye. And on top of that, if you have a compatible HDR TV or high dynamic range, that pretty much allows the 4K image you're looking at to be reprocessed to have better color, so it looks more true to life. Brighter areas of the image look brighter, darker areas of the image look darker, there's more details in what you're looking at. It's overall a much more cinematic, appealing image to the eye. And because we're still on the topic of 4K, if you're the kind of person who likes to buy or rent a lot of 4K movies just because it might not be available on Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever streaming service you're using, Apple's TV 4K box actually has the cheapest rental and movie prices out there, and that's not an accident at all. Apple actually has a lot of deals with all of these big time movie companies that actually are actively bringing the cost down for us. So if that's you and you do buy a lot of movies online, this might be an appealing purchase for you. On to sound. I did mention earlier in this review that the Apple TV 4K does support Dolby Atmos. If you're not familiar, if you have a compatible soundbar that has Dolby Atmos etched onto the soundbar itself or the box, essentially what that means is that it will allow your soundbar to deliver you audio in a very three-dimensional kind of way. It's that kind of sound where you kind of feel engulfed in the experience of the movie you're watching. It just feels, it has a nice surround sound 3D effect that's kind of similar to what you'd feel when you're watching a movie in theaters in a way. I know this is all marketing talk, but Dolby Atmos is the real deal. I'm a huge sound guy. I have speakers all over my house of all different kinds of companies, many headphones, and I can tell you Dolby Atmos is amazing. So if you're gonna get a soundbar, by the way, make sure you get one that has a Dolby Atmos built in. And then if you're gonna get the Apple TV 4K, it has Dolby Atmos, so that pairing together, sound is just amazing off that thing. Speaking of sound, I did want to talk about Spotify and Apple Music on the Apple TV. To start, both apps work incredibly well, and they're very easy to navigate on the Apple TV itself. And they sound incredible through my Dolby Atmos enabled soundbar. And I used to run a Google TV off my TV behind me, and it also supported Dolby Atmos, but for some reason, the music and audio coming out of the soundbar with the Apple TV 4K sounds louder, sounds crispier. The sound has a better three-dimensional plane when I'm hearing the audio, but they both support Dolby Atmos. So I'm not sure what's different between the Google TV Chromecast stick and the Apple TV 4K, but from my experience, it's a huge difference, and the Apple TV 4K does sound better than that. But anyway, back to the streaming services. I will say Apple Music does actually work better on the Apple TV than Spotify, and that's not much of a surprise, as you'll probably hear throughout the rest of this review. Anytime you AirPlay your music from your iPhone to the Apple TV 4K, it works flawlessly. It instantly pairs and plays your music within seconds, and then when you open up the music app on the Apple TV 4K, it's already synced up with the app, and it already knows exactly what you're playing, and you can control it now from your TV and not from your phone. Spotify, on the other hand, it doesn't exactly work that way. It kind of does, and then it doesn't. So Spotify, you can AirPlay from Spotify to the Apple TV 4K, and it works flawlessly, just like Apple Music. But the problem is, once you open up the Spotify app, Spotify actually won't sync up to the AirPlayed music that you just sent to your TV. So it just cancels everything. Now my music is paused, And now I have to re-navigate on the Apple TV 4K to play that song again from the Apple TV. I'm not sure what the problem is. I don't know if it's like a software issue or what, but AirPlay works when you throw it to the Apple TV, but the second you open up Spotify, it kind of just cancels everything out. So the only way you can actually pair your Spotify from your phone to the Apple TV 4K so that they're always in sync is that you actually have to first open up Spotify on the Apple TV 4K and then go to your phone and then connect to Spotify, not through AirPlay, but through the actual connect to device feature where you can specifically connect to the Spotify app onto the TV, and then it works that way. But you can't AirPlay and then sync. I hope I didn't confuse anybody, but I've personally found that very annoying. But something that's not a deal breaker, just I wish it was fixed. Overall, the Apple TV 4K is a great video and audio experience in 4K HDR and with the support of Dolby Atmos. But a lot of other streaming sticks out there, if not every streaming stick out there from Roku to Amazon to Google, they all support these same formats of Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos, 4K for a much cheaper price. And more or less the experience of consuming that content is going to be just as good. So surely it's not justified to just buy the Apple TV 4K just to stream music and to watch movies and TV shows, because that's not worth it if that's all you're doing. You might as well just buy the cheaper version from Amazon or Google or Roku. So what else is there for the Apple TV? What else does it offer you to kind of bring you to that $200 price point? Let's talk about it. The number one factor that will separate the Apple TV 4K from all of its much cheaper competitors is actually going to be the performance of the device. Without getting too technical, the Apple TV 4K has an A10X Fusion processor built right into it, which is the exact same processor that powers the iPad Pro from 2017, and that thing's a freaking beast. It's a monster powerhouse of power. That sounded very strange. But the iPad Pro was very powerful in 2017, and it's no different on the Apple TV 4K that's running the exact same processor. So with all this power, how does that translate into my experience using this box on my TV? Well, number one, it doesn't lag. It's super, super smooth to use. Like, I used to run exclusively Chromecast with Google TV, and I've always found it to be a little choppy, a little laggy, sometimes very laggy at times, but the Apple TV 4K, no lag at all. It's buttery smooth to use and navigate between apps and to navigate on screen. It's just a night and day difference of an experience. And it kind of depends what kind of person you are. Like, I'm the kind of person that I can't put up with any kind of lag in 2021. Like, we're 21 years into the 21st century. We shouldn't be lagging on these kind of devices. And the Google TV, for me, for example, it just wasn't a smooth experience. Another display of the Apple TV 4K's power is the ability to switch between open apps on the fly, kind of like how you would on your phone, where you can switch between and multitask between different apps. You can do the exact same thing on the Apple TV 4K, and I just think that is just the coolest thing ever, and that's just Apple, like, literally flexing, like, how powerful this TV box is. Another really cool thing about the Apple TV 4K is picture-in-picture mode. I do want to stress compatibility. Not every app on this box supports it, but the ones that do, essentially you're allowed to minimize the content that you're watching into a little box, and then you can go use another app at the same time. That is just super cool. Like, you can literally be multitasking between two different apps, like consuming the news while you're working out or something. That's a huge flex, again, from Apple and the power of the Apple TV 4K. Another factor that I wanted to talk about in this review that might be important to you, depending on how many Apple devices you actually own, is how much value this TV box brings to your Apple ecosystem. No other streaming stick or box out there has this deep level integration with a set of devices the way that the Apple TV 4K does with all of Apple's current devices out there. So let's start with the iPhone. The iPhone can actually turn into a remote for your Apple TV within seconds. All you need to do is swipe down on the iPhone on the right-hand side, press the remote icon, and boom, within a second, you're now able to control your TV from your iPhone that quick and that seamlessly. What's really amazing about this integration is that if you're ever using the Apple TV 4K and it's prompting you to type an email or a password or just something where using the actual remote would be too tedious, it's actually going to send a prompt to your iPhone to actually type in that password from the iPhone instead, because it's a lot easier to use a touchscreen versus obviously pointing at every letter with the remote. I think that's just really cool and good design thought from Apple. More on the iPhone, you can literally AirPlay almost anything from the iPhone, but I really wanted to focus on the fact that you can AirPlay photos and videos, your entire iCloud library to your TV, and I think that's really cool. Like when I pinch to zoom on photos on my iPhone, it pinches to zooms on my TV. Like that's just awesome. And if you have one of the latest iPhones from this year that can shoot 4K HDR video, you can shoot that and AirPlay that to your TV and actually enjoy that beautiful 4K HDR from your iPhone on the TV. That's a whole other level of just cool. In my opinion. You got any AirPods Pro? Well, that has some integration with the Apple TV as well. You can actually seamlessly connect them via Bluetooth to your Apple TV 4K, and it works flawlessly. There's no lag at all from the audio that's being sent from the box itself to the headphones for content you're watching or music you're listening to. So that's really cool. And then on the other piece of that is you can actually set up a sharing mode. So you can connect up to 2 different AirPods at the same time while you're watching or consuming content. And that can be very valuable if you're living in a big family home and you want to listen to some music or watch a nice movie, but you don't want to wake up the family. You and another person can consume that content through your AirPods on your TV silently while still getting a really good audio experience, because the AirPods are great. So what about for people who own Mac laptops, MacBook Airs and MacBook Pros? You can essentially AirPlay your screen from that laptop onto your TV via the Apple TV 4K box, and it works really well. I personally really love this. So for times where I don't want to sit at my desk to do work and I want to sit on my couch to write out these videos, I can be typing my script on my laptop, and then on the big 55-inch 4K TV, I can have my sources and my notes and my research on there as I'm transcribing the stuff that I want to write for these videos. Super cool. I love it a lot. Lastly, for any of you guys who do own an Apple Watch and also use Apple Fitness Plus, you'll be happy to know that there's nice seamless integration on here. So you can AirPlay the Apple Fitness Plus workout to the Apple TV, and then your Apple Watch will Bluetooth connect to the Apple TV, and then that way while you're working out, you can very seamlessly get integration where it can track your heart rate, the calories you're burning. It shows all of your metrics from your Apple Watch onto the Apple TV 4K via this Bluetooth AirPlay synchronization between the devices and the service. I just think that's super cool. I've personally used it and I love it. Much better to use it that way than the Apple Fitness Plus off your iPhone or iPad. You get to kind of work out on a bigger screen. If there's one thing that I personally don't like, but it doesn't mean that it's bad, this isn't something that I'm a fan of, is Apple Arcade on the Apple TV. If you're not familiar, Apple Arcade is a subscription gaming service that you can pay for, and you get access to an array of a growing library of titles every single month to play at your leisure. And that's exactly my problem with Apple Arcade, is not the price of it or the subscription model, but actually the games, the library of games that it has. It personally is just not for me, but it's not really a knock at the Apple TV because I get it, and I'm going to explain why. Apple TV 4K is not targeting someone like me. I have a PS5. I like playing AAA games. Those are the kind of games I like to play. I kind of think of myself as a casual AAA title hardcore gamer. The Apple TV 4K targets hardcore casual gamers. Weird, right? That's a weird niche to kind of pull out of a hat, but it's exactly the kind of person that Apple is targeting with their Apple Arcade service. It's a weird niche to kind of carve out and kind of say out loud, because hardcore casual gamer, like what does that mean? But that's who they're targeting, and that's a huge market out there, and I'm gonna kind of break that down for you. Hardcore casual gamers are people who play lots of games all the time, so they are hardcore gamers, but they exclusively play casual games all the time and have a need to want to play new casual games all the time. So if that's you, you'll love the Apple Arcade subscription service on the Apple TV. If you have an iPhone and that is you, you probably already have Apple Arcade and you're happy to know that it's already compatible with the Apple TV as well. And if you want to enhance your gaming experience, you can use PlayStation 4 or Xbox One controllers via Bluetooth on the Apple TV to control the games you're playing, and it works flawlessly. You can also eventually use the new PS5 and Xbox Series X and S controllers. Apple's releasing an update soon for that, so that's really cool as well. So overall, we started off this review with asking ourselves, is the Apple TV 4K worth $200? If all you're after is music and video streaming, it's very clear that the Apple TV 4K is just not for you. There are a huge array of much cheaper streaming box options that can do all of those things really well for a much smaller price. But even if those things do it really well and they are cheap, they're cheap for a reason. The performance of these things aren't going to be the best. And if you value performance, the Apple TV 4K delivers that in a huge way. Things are smooth, it doesn't lag at all, and it just kind of helps the whole experience of using it just be that much better over its competitors, but for a huge price. But it doesn't have to just stop at performance. The other value you get out of the Apple TV 4K really depends on how many Apple devices you own and how valuable you find those integrations between those Apple devices. If you own a plethora of stuff in the Apple ecosystem, you're probably gonna really love how well it talks to the Apple TV 4K. And if you're somebody who plays a lot of casual games or already a subscriber to the Apple Arcade subscription service via your iPhone, you're gonna love playing those games on a much bigger screen on your TV versus on your iPhone. So if that's you, the Apple TV 4K would feel very valuable to have in your home. But is that value actually worth $200? It's hard to define value, especially when the Apple TV 4K is the only one of its kind in the market that has that level of performance and that deep of an integration with all of the Apple devices out there. There just isn't anything to compare it to. So really what it comes down to is how much do you value these integrations to the Apple ecosystem? How much do you value performance? And that's how you'll know if you can arrive at paying $200 for that box. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Make sure to drop a like down below and comment down below hashtag Apple TV 4K if you enjoyed the video, and leave your thoughts on this device and I'll be sure to respond to you. And make sure to subscribe if you're brand new to the channel. We are on a road to 10,000 subscribers. So I'm super excited. I think we're probably gonna hit it at the end of March here. So very exciting. And I just wanna thank you guys so much for your continued support every week on the channel. But until next time, I'll catch all of you guys in another video. Peace.